Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be doing my weekly election prediction between former President Donald Trump and incumbent President Joe Biden. If you guys do enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, follow the Twitter in the description down below, join our Discord server, and hit that little bell so you don't miss another video that I post. And without further ado, let's get into this. And so to give you guys a little bit of context to whoever is new to the channel, effectively, Joe Biden won the election by 40,000 votes. You know, there's some liberals online that claim, oh my God, he won it by 7 million votes. No, the popular vote really does not matter. That doesn't decide the election. The Electoral College does. And so Wisconsin was about a 20,000 vote lead for Biden. Georgia was about a 12,000 vote lead, and Arizona was about an 11,000 vote lead for Biden. And so when you add that up, it's roughly 43,000 votes nationwide that granted Biden the Electoral College victory. If these would have went red, Donald Trump would have ended up tying in the Electoral College, which would have gone through the House of Representatives, and he probably would have won through that. However, we probably would have gotten a Vice President Harris out of that. So you would have had a Trump-Harris administration, which arguably I'd rather have this than that, because that would have had a lot of electoral, a lot of political consequences and could have raised a lot of political turmoil and social unrest in our country. So looking at the election now, guys, we are at a different position than we were before. You know, a lot of forecasters were saying, oh my God, Texas is toss up in Florida and Ohio and Iowa and Missouri and oh, South Carolina is going to be competitive and oh my God, Kansas and Montana. That's what everybody was saying in 2016. That's what everyone was saying in 2020. But now RCP has a model that shows that Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, including Nebraska's second congressional district, are all toss-up states, which obviously their solid likely lead margins are a little bit different. If I were to click into Florida, it's going to show like a 9-point lead for Trump. If I click into Texas, his lead is like 8 points. Like, it's not anything crazy. Like, these are not under 5, but they use a different, rating scale. But roughly, they do have the electoral map in a pretty good spot. Right now, Trump leads the popular vote by 1.8%. The disapproval rating right now for Joe Biden is minus 17.2. He's currently sitting at, if we actually look, he's sitting below 40% right now. He's actually at 90. He's at 39.2 percentage points in the popular vote, which is really bad for an incumbent president. Just about not 4 months, excuse me, about 8 or 9 months away from the presidential election. If you're down 17 points nationwide, that's not a good look. And, Red Eagle Politics made this little graph. I don't have it pulled up here, but effectively, he basically showed how incumbent presidents, perform according to their approval rating. Donald Trump had about a 46% approval rating in 2016, or excuse me, in 2020, but managed to get 47%. Obama in 2012 had a 51% approval rating, excuse me, 52%, and he managed to get 51. Bill Clinton in 1992 ended up getting, I believe it was, or 96, he ended up having a 54% approval rating, but he got 49, and that was mainly because Ross Perot, that kind of messed him up. But H.W. Bush also had a approval rating in the vicinity of what he got. So, and George W. Bush had a 54% approval rating. I think he also did, or like 53, and he ended up getting 51% of the national popular vote. So presidents don't really deviate from their approval rating. And so if Biden is sitting at 38, okay, maybe this cycle he deviates. Even if he deviates like 5 points and gets like 44%, that's still astronomically low. And even if there's a lot of third-party voters this cycle and whatnot, that's still astronomically low for the president. And so, yes, I do think that Biden's going to recover a tiny bit, leading into the election. He'll probably end up winning the popular vote by a really narrow margin. That's what I'm currently looking at right now, and how the polls are going to start polarizing themselves and narrowing up. But a tied popular vote would effectively still give Donald Trump the Electoral College, given trends. And so we're going to be filling out an Electoral College map as of right now. And so I think that Utah, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming are all safe red. The Dakotas, Nebraska, the 1st Congressional District, the 3rd Congressional District, and the at large are all going to be safe Republican. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina are all going to be safe Republican states. I'm also going to characterize Alaska in the plus 15 margin, as well as Maine's 2nd Congressional District. And so you are here with about 126 safe electoral votes for Donald Trump. I'm also going to characterize Iowa as a plus 15 state. There was a recent poll that had, Trump up by 15 points, and I expect that he probably ends up performing a little bit better than that at this point in time. He probably wins the state by, 16 to 18 points. And so the safe Democratic states, Joe Biden probably wins California by over 15. However, polling does show that the state is under 15 when you include third party votes. If you look at Washington, I think the state's going to trend to the left a little bit. So I think it's still D plus 15. Hawaii, despite Biden's, primary performance, I still think he's going to win it over by 15, but it's definitely not going to be a D plus 30 margin. It's probably going to be closer to 20 if anything, and maybe under 20, but not, under 15. I think it'll be over 15, but it could still be under 20 depending on how good of a day he has. I think that the states of DC, Maryland, Vermont, and Massachusetts all go safe Democrat next cycle. I think the states are too far left for them to even go likely Democrat. And so that only leaves Joe Biden with 97 safe electoral votes to Donald Trump's 132. Now, for the likely Republican states, which there are many, I think the state of Ohio does go likely Republican. I think if you look at the last cycle, Donald Trump was able to get 3.1 million votes here, scored 53% of the national popular vote, of the state popular vote here, and was able to run it up in some counties, was able to flip 2 counties in northeastern Ohio and run it up in white working class areas, while Biden was able to gain some in the suburbs, a tiny bit, but overall, Donald Trump performed extremely well in the state of Ohio as the incumbent president. So I think next cycle he possibly wins it by more than likely wins it by about 11 or 12 points. If you look at the state right now, Donald Trump's polling lead is a 9.5 point lead, but I think that he is going to outperform that because polls in Ohio tend to really underestimate Donald Trump in the last 2 cycles. So I think he could outperform this by a couple of points, possibly wins it anywhere from 12 to 14 points. It could end up going into safe Republican territory at some point, depending on the demographics of the night and how well, like white working class voters swing towards him, how much, the Palestine train issue could be, in that area, in northeastern Ohio. So I think that could be the case for R plus 15 New York or Ohio. But as of right now, I think it is going to be, probably 12 to 14 point win for Trump. I think the state of Florida is going to be a likely Republican margin. If you look at the last election, Donald Trump was able to get 5.6 million votes here, while Joe Biden got 5.2 million. Biden regressed heavily in Miami-Dade. If you look at the swings from the 2016 election, Miami-Dade got 22 points more Republican than last cycle. Broward got 5 points more Republican. Palm Beach, 2 more points. Henry County got 8 points. Glades County got more. Okeechobee was more, even though it was already a massive victory. Osceola County got way more Republican. And so because of that, I think that Donald Trump is going to be able to make massive inroads. I think he's going to flip Pinellas back, possibly flip Duval back, with his African American support growing. The Leon County is probably a lot closer. Orange County could potentially make a turn. I think Miami-Dade's going to flip. It's probably going to vote for Trump by a couple of points, possibly anywhere from 3 to 7 points, depending on how good of a night he has. I think in Palm Beach County, he possibly either barely loses it or barely wins it by like a point or two. So it depends on the night he got. But effectively, he's going to win the state by possibly close to 10 percentage points as of right now. In the state of Texas, if you look at the if you look at the polling right now in Texas, it is a R plus 8 state right now. And polls again always underestimate Trump there due to a lot of Hispanic support in the southern border. If you look at the state of Texas, guys, it's incredible. Donald Trump made massive inroads in the state back in 2020, where he made massive inroads with Hispanics in the border counties. where his border policies were put to work. And Biden recently scored really poor primary performances there, getting, really bad margins in counties by losing votes to two random Hispanic, you know, nobodies that basically ran for president. One of them's even from California and managed to, instead of him winning the counties by, 70, 80 points, he's only winning those counties 20 to 30, which is not what you're looking for if you're an incumbent president. And I think a lot of like, these areas like Collin County, Denton, Dallas County, Hunt County, I think a lot of these are going to start shifting back, towards Republicans in the next cycle when Biden is on the ballot against Donald Trump. And I think Donald Trump's going to be able to score a massive victory in the state of Texas, possibly winning it by 8 to 10 points. I think Florida could be 10 to 12 roughly, and I think Texas could be 8 to 10 points depending on the electorate you have that night. Now, for the likely Democratic states, I think that Oregon is going to be a likely Democratic state. I think Colorado is going to be likely, guys. Polling, does have it closer, but I still think Biden probably wins it by 10. If you look at the swing in the state, a lot of these counties ended up shifting massively Democrat, and I think the trends are going to continue in Colorado and some of the big city areas. And so I think because of that, he is going to be able to win the state, close to 10 percentage points next cycle. I think the state of Illinois, though, is going to fall under 15. It could possibly actually be closer than Colorado because I think that Donald Trump is going to make massive inroads with African American voters. I think Cook County, you're going to see lower turnout, but I think, black voters are going to get a lot closer. And I think they are going to start voting for Trump or just sit at home. And I think Trump's going to really run it up in the southern part of Illinois, bordering areas like Missouri and Kentucky and Indiana, getting really good margins here and possibly maxing out places like Lee County, LaSalle County, Putnam County, Whiteside County. I think a lot of these counties are going to start turning light pink, dark red. And you could see, suburbs outside of Chicago possibly even flip. Possibly Will County could be a county. Maybe he flips. Kendall County could definitely be a county he probably flips as well. And so in the state, I think he's going to get massive inroads here. And I think that, Donald Trump probably loses the state right now anywhere from like 6 to 9 points. And if you look at the polling, guys, it's not a really far stretch to even say Donald Trump, in polling here, 9 to 13 point leads for Biden. And, Biden, his percentage varies, but if you include all the third party candidates, which more than likely are going to be on the ballot, it is going to make the state closer, and Biden's total share here will fall. And Donald Trump has scored anywhere from 34% as high as 42% in some polling. And so I think that, if they do polls here, they are going to start getting way. I think if they poll now, I think the results are going to be even closer than what they had back in October. But I do think that it is a likely state right now. I also am going to characterize the state of New York as a likely Democratic state. I think the state of New York is probably going to end up being a state that does get a lot closer. Even in 2020, you saw massive shifts in the city area as of right now for Donald Trump because of increased African American support. Even in the 2020 election, you're going to see a lot of upstate New York kind of revert back. It seems like Donald Trump is going to pick somebody for VP out of the state of New York, more than likely would be Lee Zeldin. And I think that that could potentially push his bid, even further in the state of New York. And Donald Trump wants to make a play for the state. And I think he could definitely do it. I think Donald Trump's, possible ceiling in terms of raw votes could be close to 4 million votes there. So depending on how low turnout Biden gets, he could potentially get it really close or even, pull an upset victory. But as of right now, I think the state's going to be likely Democrat. Biden probably wins it by anywhere from 5 to 8 points as of right now. I do have it a lot closer than other, political analysts, but I do think Biden still wins it, but it is a lot closer than before. I think Rhode Island, Delaware, New Jersey, Connecticut, they're likely Democrat. We're not going to go over these for the sake of the video and its length. I think Maine's first is going to fall under 15 because I do have something to say about Maine, which we will get to in a second. Now we're coming to the lean states as of right now. Well, actually, we still need a few likely states to fill out. We have North Carolina. North Carolina, is a state that it has been very weird politically. It's been, basically the white whale for Democrats. Ever since they won it in 2008, they've been trying to get it, and they say they can, but they've never been able to do it. And despite having higher black turnout, in 2020, they still weren't even able to pull the state. And I think right now, Biden's performance here in terms of raw votes compared to Trump's primary results was very poor. I think that the North Carolina GOP has massively been competent over the past 2 or 3 years. And so I think Donald Trump is going to score a likely victory, possibly a 6 point win here. And if you look at the RCP aggregate, it has it at a 5.7 margin. And so I don't think a 6 point victory could be, I don't think that's an unrealistic thing to say right now, based out of all the polling that we've had so far. And I think, as we're coming into these other swing states, I think that basically we could say now that New Mexico is probably a lean Democratic state. If you look at the polling average right now here, it has the state, 6, 10, 8. However, I think that Hispanics are going to shift massively next cycle. And you see areas like, Mora County shifting Republican, Guadalupe County shifting Republican. You see Torrance County shifting, Sacramento County, you see Eddy County, Lake County, Chavez County, a lot of Hispanic counties shifting towards Republicans. It's really the white vote that's actually keeping the state Democrat. Funny enough, even though this is the only majority Republican state or the majority Hispanic state in the nation, or at least one of the only majority Hispanic states as of right now, the white vote actually keeps it Democrat, which is funny enough. But I think Republicans, Hispanics are going to be able to shift enough to make the state lean. However, I think it does still vote for Biden, possibly by 3 to 4 points, depending on the demographics that he's getting that day. The next likely state on the map, well, actually, we're going to start getting into the lean states now. I think that Wisconsin does vote for Donald Trump by about 3.5 points. I think Donald Trump is going to score a good victory here. It was really close in 2020, barely 20,000 vote lead for Biden. And I think Donald Trump's probably going to score about 1.7 million in the state, and Biden's probably going to fall down to like 1 point like 5 100 like probably falls like maybe 50,000 votes, close to 100,000. So I could see Donald Trump possibly winning the state by 3, somewhere around in that vicinity. The Donald Trump's, I think his ceiling here is like 1.75 million, but I think he probably gets like 1.67 million, and then Biden probably gets a little bit lower than this. So Donald Trump probably wins the state, possibly by 3 percentage points next cycle. The next lean state I'm going to add here is the state of Georgia. I think Georgia is going to vote for Donald Trump by probably 4.5 points. I think it's close to likely. I think, African American turnout is really going to dip next cycle, in my opinion. I think that a lot of African American voters are going to shift back to Donald Trump. And I think that Donald Trump's going to be able to score an easy victory in the state. If you look at the aggregate here, Donald Trump's ahead by 6.5%, and usually Republicans get overestimated in the state by 2 points. So to say Donald Trump wins it by 4.5 is actually within a polling error, analysis. So I think that that is something really peculiar to look at. And even looking at the previous state, Wisconsin, Donald Trump leads it by 1. However, usually polls here tend to overestimate the Democratic support, or at least underestimate Republicans by about 5 to 7 points, depending on the poll. Now, do I think it's going to be a like 6 to 8 point miss? I don't think so. I don't see Wisconsin being R+9, but I think R+3.5 is a pretty, decent characterization as of right now. And I think for the state of Nevada, I think the state of Nevada, Donald Trump is going to win it. I think he's going to probably get, probably 750,000 votes here. And Biden probably falls a little bit under what he has here, probably gets Donald Trump's total. So that probably leads Biden possibly even losing it by a likely margin. But I'm going to say it's probably like a 2 or 3 point win for Trump right now. I think that there's going to be a major shift in Clark County. Even if you look at the county here shifted only 1.4% Republican. However, I think there is going to be a massive shift in 2024 because of Hispanic trends. So I think Donald Trump probably does win it by about 3 percentage points. And we're closing in here on the final states. As of right now, I think that Pennsylvania is going to be a lean Republican state. I think Donald Trump does pick off the state. Biden probably won it, I think, by like 120,000 votes, possibly. Actually, a little bit less than that if you look at it. It was actually like an 80,000 vote victory, believe it or not. I think he'll flip back Erie County. I think he's going to flip back Northampton, possibly gets places like Lackawanna and Monroe County back. I think he wins Pennsylvania by possibly like a point and a half, maybe even 2 points depending on Biden's performance. The whole Scranton Joe facade is pretty much gone at this point. I think he even flips like a Centra County back too. And even Dauphin, you could put that into question. Now, I do think the Philadelphia area may stay a little bit. However, I do think in the outer suburbs, I think some African American voters here are going to shift his way. And so, because of that, I am going to put it in the lean category. Michigan, I think, will vote by a lean margin as of right now. I think Michigan, Donald Trump's performance here was very, very good in the primaries. And I think that the polling here looks exceptionally well. Pennsylvania, Biden barely leads it, but Donald Trump's support always gets underestimated there. And if you look at Michigan, Donald Trump leads it by 3.6 percentage points as of right now. Now, the polling, lead has shrunken. However, I think his lead is still pretty massive in the state and his support tends to be underestimated there. So I think that he probably does win it by a point and a half, possibly on election day. As of right now, I think I see it maybe 1.2 percentage point victory for him right now. Now, we're going to be getting into some of the other lean Democratic states. I think that Virginia possibly is like a 2 point win for Biden. I think that the Youngkin endorsement for Trump probably does make it a point closer. I've been saying Biden wins it by 3 to 4, but I think with the Youngkin endorsement, it actually does get a little bit closer. I think Youngkin could influence at least about a 50,000 voters in order to go vote for Donald Trump. I think somewhere around that ballpark is a pretty decent estimate, maybe a little bit less than that. But I think now Biden's probably in a 2.5 to 3 point victory in the state of Virginia, much closer than what it was, in the 2020 election. I think the state of New Hampshire is still lean Democratic. However, I think it's only like D plus 1.5. D plus 2. I think it's way closer than the 2020 election. However, due to white suburban trends, I do think it is going to stay Democrat. And if you look at the polling does look really good for Biden. I think he's actually up by 8 in the state, so he's doing very well here. However, I think because of that, I still think the support is overestimated for Biden here, and Donald Trump's support is underestimated as well. And I think that he is going to be able to get a pretty, almost get the victory, but I don't think he's going to exactly get it. And now we have basically 4 more states to fill out. I think Nebraska's second does very narrowly go like tilt Republican, possibly. As of right now, I think it is really close, but it has been registered to be a little bit more Republican, and I think Donald Trump probably ekes it out. And the one swing state that I have been saying is going to go to Biden, I think as of right now, based on everything, based on primary turnout, based on the State of the Union speech that just happened recently, I think that Arizona does go to Republican. It was a really close state back here, 11,000 vote margin. However, I personally think that Donald Trump probably barely wins it. I think Maricopa may get bluer. However, he'll probably gain in a place like Pima, probably in a place like Greeley. He probably expands his margin by a few thousand, few hundred votes. Gila County probably, expands it. Maybe Maricopa does get closer, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see. Maybe some of these Democratic counties could potentially get closer. But I think Biden could still win Maricopa, but maybe it does get closer, maybe it doesn't. It depends, but I think as of right now, Donald Trump probably wins the state, possibly by 0.3 to 0.6 percentage points. And the last 2 states, Minnesota, I think, is tilt Democrat right now. Even though the polling has it at like, see, look, it has it as D plus 3 for Biden as of right now. But I think the state is much closer than that. I think the Minneapolis, surge here because of BLM, I think really did massively, make the turnout here much larger than a lot of people were anticipating. And so because of that, I think that Donald Trump is probably going to make a lot of inroads here, probably, make these counties solid red next time. And so because of that, I do think he is going to be able to narrow the state up and probably barely lose it. And now the biggest hot take of the prediction, I have Maine going tilt Trump. And this is mainly because out of the recent polling of the state, Donald Trump is up by 6 points here. And not only that, with a very high third party vote share this year, as well as Maine usually always gets a lot, and I mean Maine always gets a lot of third party votes overall. Usually, when there's a big third party presence, a large sum of third party votes. And even though, it is going to be competitive, I still think Donald Trump, as of right now, could edge out Biden in the state, even before a state like Minnesota, because of the fact there is a high third party vote share and all of that. And I think that because of the new polling that just came out, I think that does put Trump in a little bit of an advantage there. And so as of right now, Donald Trump leads Joe Biden 315 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 223 electoral college votes. If you guys did enjoy this for prediction and analysis, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow the Twitter in the description down below, join our Discord server, and hit that like button so you don't miss another video that we post, and you could stay up to date with political content just like this. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.